Welcome back to my channel. In this episode, we're going to be talking all things Airbnb and how my boy Ivan has a systematic approach to his Airbnb investing.
What I've learned is like every business, there's like a learning curve, right? Like
For sure.
you're having to figure things out. Like, give me a rental, I know how to do
steps.
it. It's I got it. It's pretty easy. We pre-screen a background check, credit check, like make sure they're legit, you know, get a good gut feeling. Everything else checks off. Like, let's rent it to them.
Right.
Airbnb, it's like, how do we even do this? You know, it's just a
Right.
different.
It's foreign.
Yeah, it's foreign.
Yeah.
But what's really cool, what I can teach you about Airbnb, or at least the listeners, right? The Airbnb is find out what your niche is, right? So is it Big Bear? Is it San Diego? Is it Palm Springs, right? Like, you know Palm Springs, I don't. Is it Palm Springs?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Palm Desert, yeah.
Palm Desert, right?
Yeah,
So like you would know like what the areas are at and like where to get one because you grew up there or you've been there, right?
Sure.
With Big Bear, I just knew that I love snowboarding and I'm like, I'd want to have an Airbnb where I like to vacation.
Right.
And so we got an A-frame there, which A-frames are very highly sought after. Right. It's a very trendy, hipster
The place
thing.
looks sick, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Right. And it's like, we just thought it was cool. Like I was like, oh, I want an A-frame, not knowing that it was very sought after.
Right.
So Airbnb has its own little like tab for A-frames. So if you click A-frames, it'll show you all the A-frames.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I didn't even realize that. We just got excited. I thought it was cool, but
Right.
people actually seek to stay at A-frames, which is pretty interesting.
So was your plan when you went into that, did you like comp it out, like what other A-frames were selling for? Or were you like, this is where I want to vacation. And if we can put it on Airbnb, if we can make some money from it, like let's do it.
So I knew I wanted an A-frame.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to Airbnb it, right? Not really doing any of the comps. It was more of just like, I want an A-frame.
Right.
Like aesthetically, it just looks cool. And I was
Sure.
like, I want an A-frame. And then I had, on Pinterest, I had seen a black A-frame and I was like, and I actually had like printed it out, put it on my vision board, and I was like, I'm gonna get a black A-frame,
Right.
And so I've been, and that market in 2020 was a lot crazier, right? Like things were flying off, like 100,000 over asking, and I was like, I'm not paying 100,000 over asking. Like this is insane, right? Like I'm an investor, like trying to get a deal, I'm not trying to like overpay.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, like A-frame comes on the market, it falls out in like October, and I'm like, what? Like this thing's on the market for like an hour? How is it still on? So I call the agent and I'm like, look, man, I want this. Like you write it up. Like I want to offer this. It's like, no. I'm like, come on, you're like, you're going to represent me. Just write the deal and give me a deal, And I did. He was able to give me a somewhat of a discount. And if you're a licensed real estate agent, you're able to get a referral fee out of it. So it was cool. Paid for a little bit of my closing costs. And so we got the A-frame, went up there, and we just started renovating it. And what was really cool because of the shortage of COVID, like there was a shortage of material, there was a shortage of furniture, like
Everything.
Everything. I couldn't even order wood. I couldn't order faucets. So we had to piece a lot of the stuff. Like we were looking on like Facebook Marketplace for a couch. We were looking on Craigslist. We were looking on like, Wayfair. Like we were trying to piece this A-frame together because we're like,
we want to get this up and
we
running.
want it now. We don't want to wait 6 months for a couch.
Yep.
And so we put that all in together, and it was pretty cool. So I would say that the number one thing I would share with you is if you're gonna do investing on Airbnb space, make sure if you're not gonna run it yourself, get yourself a super host.
Right.
Okay. And so what a super host is, not sure if you know what a super host is, but what's really cool about what the super host is, it's that someone that has already been vetted out, who's got the reviews and the experience. And if they got good reviews and they got a good experience, they become a super host. And so what happens is Airbnb will push their listings, the algorithm, they'll push the listings to the top, right?
So it's not based on like property specific. It's just based on being that host.
Yeah.
So it's almost like being a super property manager in a sense, but for Airbnb.
Yeah.
So that's legit.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like Yelp. Like it'll always push the top reviews.
The people who pay for it.
Yeah, people are paying for it too.
Right.
But it's also who's got the most reviews, they're going to get pushed to the top.
Right.
And so Superhost, they've got the good reviews, they got the good experience. So Airbnb will push their listings to the top.
That's awesome.
So when I first started, I got connected with the property manager that wasn't a Superhost. So our like things weren't getting pushed. We weren't getting booked, and we're getting bad reviews. And like the property manager was like, "Oh yeah, it's just these crazy LA people." And you're like, "No, like we don't want to have bad reviews. Like we want to have a good experience." And it was just a bad property manager.
Gotcha. How long did you until you fixed that?
So we did that. That lasted about 2-3 months.
Okay.
That was like the learning curve of like, all right, we should probably done a better job, done a little bit more research. And so I share this because if I could save somebody that headache,
totally.
that's huge.
Right.
And so what's cool about a superhost is you become a co-host. And what that means is that if for one day, things don't work out with that property manager, you still get to keep your profile, right? So all the reviews that you built up,
you still get to keep that.
You get to keep that page.
That's awesome.
Where if you're not a host on your page, and the things don't work out, now you want to take ownership. Now you have to start your profile over again.
Yeah. Oh, that
with
sucks.
0 reviews, 0, like people have to stay there. And so people will go off reviews. Like, what are people saying? What do they enjoy about your place?
That's cool.
Yeah.
What financing did you guys get? Did you go conventional or did you pay cash?
Yeah. So on that place, we paid, we did conventional 20% down.
What was the purchase price?
The purchase price, we paid $429 for it.
Okay.
And, I think all in, we're in at like $2,300.
Okay.
$2,300 a month, which is crazy.
In 2021, rates were amazing.
Yeah, the rates are still low. I think we got it like 4%. And it's been great because those Airbnbs, man, it's like what's cool about the Airbnb space is every market's different. But what I learned about Big Bear is that you make 60% of your money during the wintertime. So right now, like we're booked out till February. I think even February is like halfway booked, and it's like, I'm talking booked out.
Right.
And it's crazy because you can get a premium for like holidays. So for Christmas, we're getting $800 a night,
crazy.
New Year's, $800 a night. Like, so we're getting a premium.
Right.
And if there's snow, as soon as snow hits up in Big Bear, like
You're
we're
filled
booked.
up instantly.
Yeah. I got friends like, hey, I think I want to book it in January. I'm like, dude, like we're booked.
Sorry, bud.
I can't even stay at our own Airbnb,
That's
which
crazy.
is pretty great. Cause like last year we stayed there for Christmas, had our first white Christmas and it was great. But this year we're able to stay at it because somebody booked it before us.
Right.
I just forgot to block it off.
That's nuts. Do you mind sharing like what you guys cash flowed?
Yeah, not at all. So what's really cool about the Airbnb, we'll probably make anywhere from like 85 to 90, 95,000
After
this
expenses?
year. No. That's
Okay.
all.
Gotcha.
Right.
Cool.
And then, so that's what we'll make. We haven't,
So 24,000 is basically your mortgage per year,
Yeah.
right? And then expenses, maybe another 10 to 15.
10 to 15 for house cleaner. House cleaner is the one that she makes pretty good money because she's
that's
out
crazy.
there, man. She's cleaning it every 3 days, every weekend. Like, so she's making some good money, And
Imagine having like 15 or 20 of those things.
Dude, she makes good money. And so the crazy part about that is I tell people, I'm like, I make no profit off the cleaning fee, So there's some property managers or Airbnb people that will like charge $100 and they'll charge them $150, so they'll make a $50 profit.
Gotcha.
I just want to keep her happy and keep her clean and get this place clean.
But that's awesome.
Ours is dog friendly, and so that's very sought after as well. But she's great. She goes in there and she's like vacuuming. Like we go there and like we have no hair there, so it's pretty cool.
Can you guys do a rapid depreciation on an Airbnb like you can with traditional rentals? Do you guys do that?
Yeah.
Okay,
So you definitely can. I haven't done it yet. Funny that you mentioned that. My tax accountant said, "Okay, we got to do it this year."
Right.
So that's one thing.
Great though.
Yeah.
So it's basically tax-free money, all your gains.
Well, and what's really cool about the Airbnb space is like once you figure out your system, it's like now it's like how do we get more, right?
Right.
And so now that's where I've been looking at like I need to get 3 other more because
And you're hunting right now, right?
yeah, we're literally hunting right
right.
now for another one, and I've placed offers. I've just gotten beat out,
Right.
and I'm like, all right, and it's funny because we're in a recession. The market's still hot out there. Like
I heard.
I'm still competing against 3 to 6 other offers. And I'm like, this is wild. Like, where's all these people having this money from?
But dude, that's great. Once you have that system in place, I feel like you can just continuing to copy the same process that you had before over and over and over again. And then consistent, like, dude, if you can bring an extra, 40, 60, right? Then all of a sudden you're basically covering your entire expenses per year just with your Airbnbs.
And what I love about that is there is a system, right? And I think that I want to share that with like the listeners because some people think like, oh, I'm going to get an Airbnb and make bank. Like it's not that simple in the sense that like, it's got to look good.
Right.
Right. Like my wife's got a good eye for design. And so she went in there, made it kind of trendy and modern. It looks cool. Like people want to stay at a place that's Instagram worthy, right? Like or they can take a cute little selfie with their friends and they can post it online. Like we had this backup what do they call this? Like this neon sign. It says it was all a dream.
Yep.
So people take pictures there, and it's like this little photo op. Like there's little photo ops within the Airbnb space in our space that people can take a cool little cute picture and they can upload to their Instagram.
That's big in Palm Springs and like Arizona and Nashville. They do like those walls, the theme walls and all that different stuff to where people take selfies and like tag their specific like Airbnb listing on Instagram and like pushes it out. And then people like want to go to those places because they see how cool it looks.
Yeah. It's funny. Like we live in a world where people just want a cute Instagram picture. You know what I mean? Like that's,
I don't know about you and I, but maybe our significant others.
Our significant others like, babe, take a picture. You know, like, all right, let's take the picture.
Is this a good angle?
Yeah. So I would say that the biggest thing, if anyone's looking to invest in an Airbnb space, is make sure you get a super host. Make sure you spend some time or hire somebody to design your space inside if you're not talented with putting the furniture together, the theme. And then also find out like what people are looking after, or for example, like Palm Springs, it's got to be modern, right? Mid-century modern. If you're not going to get a brand new house out there, it's probably not. People are not.
Some of them. It just depends on the area because there's so many different. Like Palm Springs is kind of that different animal because you get snowbirds, people from Washington and Canada and all that stuff that goes out there.
I would think looking outside in, like if I'm going out there, I'd want to stay at a sick mid-century modern home. I wouldn't want to stay at a regular track home.
Yeah.
Like I could stay there here
anytime. Right. Yeah.
Right. And so I think out there, it's the A-frames, the Cambrel roofs are big. The hot tubs is a must if you're going to go.
Oh, you have to have a pool there, right? In Palm Springs. But for you guys, like having a hot tub, I remember when we were going out to Big Bear, it was like, after snowboarding, I want to go sit in a hot tub and have a few drinks.
Yeah. Our property manager, he's like, so we pay him 20%. And he says, by having a hot tub, and he's got all the stats, he's like, we'll easily make you an extra $30,000 a year from having a hot tub.
That's crazy.
It's insane. It's like a $5,000 investment.
Right.
I'll pay for a hot tub all day long.
Dude, that's
Make
why
an
not?
extra $25,000 a year. You know what I mean?
Totally.
$30,000. So, yeah, I like the Airbnb space. It's a fun thing, and I definitely want to invest more into like the Airbnb space. I'd love to have one in San Diego. Few in San Diego, more. You know what I mean? Like just not stop, but like I really like Big Bear. Big Bear's cool. It's a fun destination, and it's
not too expensive either.
No, like you buy a property for $400,000, $500,000, like that's relatively low of what you're going to be spending in San Diego. San Diego, you're going to be spending $1 million, and 800 to $1 million to get something.
San Diego, I feel like you have to kind of have like one of those like coastal properties.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a limiting belief on me, like thinking that you have to have something coastal or like on the beach. But like if I was to live out of area and come to San Diego, I'd want to be near the water.
A pool.
Right.
You have to have a pool.
Or a pool. Yeah.
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 I was talking to somebody else who invests and has Airbnbs out here, and he says like, as long as you have a pool, you're going to be okay.
Right.
I'm like, that's crazy. Because even like Vista, like they're sought after. I'm like, what? Like who wants to stay in Vista? But there's Legoland.
I looked up Airbnb stuff and because the property that I have in escrow right now in Carlsbad, in my head, I was looking at multiple exit strategies, and I was like calling a vacation rental guy, and I was like, how much can I rent this place out for? And it's just under a $2 million price point. So I was like, am I going to be able to break even on this? Am I going to be able to cash flow?
Yeah.
Dude, surprisingly, even with pure ocean views and all of that, like it would make $130,000 a year, which I wouldn't even cover like the entire mortgage, which I was surprised.
Yeah.
So a lot of these people, like I feel like they bought these homes, or they were primary residences, and then they bought second homes and then decided to like rent them out versus like just going out and looking for an Airbnb. Because I think it's tough. It would be a little tougher, I think, to cash flow here.
Oh, 100%. And I don't know the numbers out here. I haven't done the research, but yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, 100%. If you have a $2 million property, you got to be making
totally. And this was the numbers on this specific deal, so I'm sure it could vary on other stuff. But,
you got to find that sweet spot, right? And it's also bedrooms, right? So it's like if you can get that same amount, 130, and you're spending 800,000,
right?
It's like, okay, let's go.
No-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, right? It's like, let's go get the house that's 800,000,
right?
That has 5 bedrooms and it has the pool.
Yep. Then it makes more sense.
And it makes more sense.
And I think the travel nursing stuff and like all those types of avenues too, like you wouldn't expect people to come in like, Airbnb, like a normal residential house. But I think it happens more often than I think it does.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. I think a lot of it too is just like, my friend just got her first Airbnb in Fallbrook. And she's like, I'm going to do a Airbnb in Fallbrook. I'm like, Fallbrook? Like, what? Random. Like, that's random. Why? Like, and I was like, not trying to be a Debbie Downer with my friend. I'm like, hey, I don't know if it's going to rent out, just saying, like, maybe do some research,
Right.
you know, like, obviously I care for this friend, so I'm looking out for her.
Right.
And she's booked. She's booked like 3-4 months.
No
and
way.
I'm like, what? And it's like a studio, but because there's a lot of weddings in Fallbrook. There's a lot of weddings. So where are people going to stay when they go to Fallbrook? You know?
Right. I think maybe it's just a limiting belief.
There's no hotels,
Right.
you know? So now they're going to want to stay at an Airbnb. This thing is super cute, modern, trendy. They're going to stay there. And she is booked and making stupid money. I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, for you and I, it's like when we go to travel, we're going to travel outside, right? Like Big Bear. I go to Mexico a lot. You go to Mexico a lot. So you're looking in those places like that you would go and travel to, and not thinking, okay, like a normal house in Fallbrook can rent and maybe cash flow. Like, would you expect that? I wouldn't. But that's great. Like, those stories like that are inspiring.
So it's interesting finding out like what every city has to offer, right? Fallbrook is weddings,
right?
You know, weddings. You got the wineries up in Temecula, so it's like people need a place to stay,
Totally.
you know. And so
Please consider subscribing if you haven't already.